All right, guys, here we are again, the church debater and preacher Mike. Mike, how you doing? We're on a
Man,
Monday, by the way. We're recording on Monday this week.
yeah, that's what makes Monday good. Usually Mondays are tough, but when we got preacher Mike church debater stuff going, it makes a
Yeah.
Monday great.
And you look more laid back today, so maybe I can
I
ask
am.
you some stuff that's more controversial.
Oh, you could if you want.
By the way, I want to make everybody aware that if you can see behind my head, I now have two clocks behind me.
Yeah.
So you all will know when Mike is late. So
just write it down that it's probably going to happen 75% of the time.
What's up with the Reds beating the Cardinals 2 out of 3 games this weekend?
Actually, I just heard about it this morning because I saw the first game and thought, oh, yeah, the Cardinals are going to be great. But then apparently they scored, the Reds scored more runs in a 3-game series at home than they've done in years.
Oh, it had to have been. It had to have been. It's a fluke. It won't last. You can tell how much confidence I have in the Reds, can't you? Hey, let me tell you about last week's episode. We were answering Laney and Wesley's questions. It's obvious that's going to be like one of our top 5 episodes. So that's always good. And Emily sent us another note this week that says it's been a busy week and I didn't get a chance to tell you, but the kids loved it. They had smiles from ear to ear listening. Thank you for your active evangelism that we are benefiting from. And you know what I told her? I said, I thought about a half an hour after it was over. If I had to do it over, I would have had them on the show with us.
That would have been good.
That would have been better.
Outstanding.
You need to get a better producer is all I can say.
You know what? Since I would never have done it anyway, then any producing I get is the top of the line.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. We have a question from Greg this week. And if his name's Greg, he's got to be smart.
Oh, I thought you were just sort of covering for yourself.
No. This is another Greg. And by the way, I see he used a word in his question. It's actually a paragraph or two. If you take the top 200 most used words in the English language, in the United States version of the English language, this word is the most misspelled. How do you spell separate or separate, however you want to say it? What?
separate.
All right. Most people put an E in the middle instead of an A. So,
I know.
And he spelled it correctly too. So listen, I'll tell you the title of the email first.
Okay.
Called out people, a Christian private society. So here's the question. Imagine a world where Christians had their own economic and social system. Christians would trade and conduct business with other Christians. They had their own currency, their own arbitration system, all separate and apart from the rest of the world. Should Christians want a system like that? Is it supported by Scripture? Take it away. I like that one.
I do. I think it's fascinating. I will say this. I don't think, obviously, that it is possible. Number 2, I don't think it is what we should strive for as a rule or as a consistent situation, because there is no, if you have that kind of a setup, what kind of interaction would you ever have with people who are outside the Christian environment?
Right.
And where would evangelism then be? So I think that the interactions that we have with people, not just for evangelistic purposes, but for other purposes that give us eye contact and face-to-face, is a preferred deal. Now, I will also hasten to say that if I can use the opportunities I have with my brethren to support their business versus another one, I would always I'd try to choose my brother in Christ or sister in Christ. And that's where I would want to go. But to say that we should strive for a system whereby we only use each other seems to me to be more of a monastic, exclusive society, that concept more than what maybe Christians ought to be.
Okay. Legalistic, would you throw that in the category of legalistic?
I think you probably could. It would get to that point, because then you might even, in a system like like the questioner has asked, you might even have a cradle system that says, okay, if I'm going to support your business, I have to have you answer these questions, because we all know that within the framework of Christians, we don't all agree on everything. So what point does a person then cease to be the community of faith where you would want to do business with them? So you'd have to have this questionnaire and so it could turn into a very legalistic thing. Sure, absolutely.
Should we use Jesus as our example of the type of people we can interact with?
No doubt. No doubt.
Well, be specific then about some what we would put in the category of hardcore sinners that he came in contact with. How should we handle that?
Sure. I would want, first of all, to think about not just sinners, but I would say the Richmond Church is working with feeding the homeless once a week. I think that's an area. I think too, we've done work in the past. The Richmond Church, not as much, very little. I've tried, but not been able to get into it in the prison system,
right?
In the jails, and try to make contacts that way. So I think that would be. I think we could work with. We have situations where we could work with homes for unwed mothers, children out of wedlock. You might have children or women who have been sexually abused, and we could be with them. Maybe we could host an AA meeting in our buildings.
Sure.
Because I think it'd be great, or an NA meeting, or a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. I mean, all kinds of those kinds of contacts with people. And certainly then outside of the sinful concepts, plenty of actions with people who are suffering all kinds of physical and mental diseases or sicknesses or problems, and being able to be there to support and encourage.
Okay. I know of a church in not too far from here that actually has a program for recovering prostitutes.
Really?
How do you feel about that? And how do you think our members would feel about that?
It's not just about, my answer would not be just about the Richmond Church.
Sure.
But about people in general. You
Right.
can have a lot of things, a lot of different kinds of sinful actions that people are willing to work with and to help. But when you get into sexual sins, now you're in an area that a lot of people would write off sexual things versus writing off anything else. And so when you have a situation like that, I think people look down on those. They would look down on a recovering prostitute far quicker than they would look down on an alcoholic or even a drug addict. But those sexual sins. So I think the reason for that might be that because sexual sins represent the nature of who we are as sexual beings. That's why, because it either makes us nervous, it touches us where we are, because we all have some kind of connection to that, and most of us have had or do have trouble dealing with that area, and so it really bothers us as an individual, makes us self-aware to be around people like that. But yeah, I think it would be wonderful to have a group like that we could deal with if we could do so. Sure.
Okay. Let me flip it around a little bit then.
Okay. All right.
Let's say that I want to evangelize, take the opportunity in every situation I encounter. What if I go into a bar because I want to evangelize people there, and so as to put them at ease, I order one drink.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they will listen to me more if I order one drink. I might not take a drink. I might take a drink. Is that okay? If I don't feel I'm violating my conscience, is that okay? And of course, we won't have to get into the whole drunkenness versus one drink discussion, but can we do things unusual for our own personalities if it means we open a door to talk to somebody else that may otherwise never hear it?
Well, there's a general principle that we certainly would not support violating, and that is when you violate your own faith. So if you believe that you should not take a drink, but in order to do evangelism, you take a drink, now you've destroyed the situation, because you first of all need to evangelize yourself.
Right.
So I would certainly oppose violating your own faith. Number two, to answer a question like that, I would probably also ask, are there other situations where I could ask the same thing about? You just brought up recovering prostitutes. Well, if I want to talk to one, should I go hire one? Hopefully to have a chance to discuss the Bible with them. That's an odd deal. So when you ask a question like that, which is a good thought question to have, without answering that question, I would want to know what kind of precedent does the answer to that set for all other kinds of things. And so should I go to a crack house and buy some crack to talk to the crackheads, maybe even use it just to show them that I'm open? So I think I would be more prone to say that I would be more concerned about my influence based on I'm trying to change their behavior, but to do that, I'm acting just like them, rather than saying, I'll talk with you, I care about you, and what you do in your environment isn't going to keep me from trying to help, but I'm not going to participate. That's the way I would answer that.
So are you okay then if I see a friend that I know is depressed, I'm worried about them, and I know they're in that bar, you okay if I go down and sit next to them and don't drink, but just talk to them to make sure they're okay?
I would have zero problem with it. I've done it myself.
Okay, good. All right. I'm actually going to change subjects now. I'm not going to promise this every week, but I did something this week. I'm going to let you decide whether it was a sin or not. Okay. You ready for that?
Oh, good night. Well, you talk about throwing a curveball. You're talking about baseball.
All right. I'll set it up a little bit. I'm getting ready to share my screen, and I'm going to play a 2.5-minute audio clip from my Substitute Teachers Lounge podcast this week. Nice. About me playing an April Fool's prank on one of my classes. So I'd like to hear your comments. It goes about 2.5 minutes. Good. Keep in mind that I'm the kind of guy that I'm bumping elbows, I'm waving at all the students, and I had such a stone face when they came in that morning. I don't know. They fell for it right away. So I'm going to play it for you. Yeah. And then after 2.5 minutes, you can tell me if I need to do a hardcore confession and repent of my sins. Okay. Ooh. All right, here we go. All right. I assume you can see that screen, correct?
Yeah, I can.
So I've got it all set up. I'm going to click play now.
Okay.
This is my last week teaching you guys. Okay, now wait just a minute. I can still substitute, but it will probably not be here because they're concerned that if I come back to the school that I was here for, it will be interpreted that they never really changed anything. Okay? Here's the crazy part, what I'm sad for you guys about. They don't think they can get a credentialed teacher hired to teach your class. And it has to be credentialed now because of what happened. So they are talking about splitting this class up into 4 pieces and giving you all to different teachers that already have a math class at the same time. The crazy part is there's not enough 7th grade math teachers to do that. So there's actually a chance that some of you will be in a room in a corner with 6th graders in the front. They'll try, I mean, like the old days, they'll try to teach you all both at the same time. So I hate that for you guys. I hate it for me. Okay, look, here's the details. I'm going to start writing some names up here. Okay, I'm actually getting ready to write April Fool on the board.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you guys good. Come on. You know what else? Keep listening. Keep listening. I love it. When I came in, I'm trying to have my sad face. I'm getting ready to tell them about my camera. I was trying to be kind of mean when I came in and said, "Erase that board." You know what else is funny? You see this? It's on. So I'm gonna have so much fun showing this to people. This is gonna be great. All right, I'll stop sharing. That's good enough. All right, so here's the deal. Here's the deal. I tricked them. I played a gag on them. I know a couple of the girls actually said they teared up, not because they were going to miss me that much. They thought I was getting emotional. So they were getting emotional. The part that really got them is they had to sit in with 6th graders.
That was hilarious. That was hilarious.
Tell me, was that okay? Did I sin when I did that?
That goes into the same category of people who ask me, is it a sin to tell your children that there is a Santa Claus?
Okay.
Same category. Or is it a sin to talk to your children about believing in unicorns? Those kinds of things. Well, we've talked about the concept of a lie and a deceit, and the idea that I think that a lie must have intention to it. An untruth doesn't necessarily mean a lie. It either is an untruth because you don't know the truth, or it's an untruth because you're trying to trick somebody. If you're trying to deceive them to get a benefit, then that wouldn't be right either, because that's intention. But to play a trick on somebody, I like it. I think it is outstanding. I love it.
I showed it to my math boss, and she said, I have never seen something more thought out and designed in my life.
That is true.
The funny thing is, I walked in the classroom. They were staring up on the board. I was out in the hallway because I had hall duty, and they were staring at the board. And I'm thinking, what are they looking at? And I walked in there. They had written April Fool on the board. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't going to work because they've already written that on the board. So I just walked in and said, you guys need to erase that, and just walk back out. They erased it. Now, they didn't think I was mad. They just thought, well, that must have been why he had the board all clean, because he wanted to write something on it. But I got them. And Mike, you know how my heart works.
Oh,
about 24 hours later, I kind of felt bad about it.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready to go on spring break, and I sent them all an email, told them how they were one of my favorite classes ever. They were jokingly posting on Google Classroom, I hate you, Mr. Collins. And then they'd say, April Fool. So we had fun with it. I would not put that in the public YouTube, but I do have it on their YouTube channel, so they can see it. The biggest reaction is when they thought they were going to get stuck in class with 6th graders, and their eyes got big. Are you kidding me? Well, let me ask you this then. Let me take it to a different level. I don't like pranks.
Yeah.
I'll do it on April Fool's Day, but I won't participate any other time. Let me give you an example. And I know some of these people are probably listening, and I apologize, but they know this. Back when, Brandon and Bryce are in their 30s now. back when Kim was pregnant with them, it was right around Halloween when they did this. They continually announced a costume party for the young people out at the campground. Okay. So I went in full Dracula. I mean, fangs, paint, cape, everything. Kim had a little old lady mask, and she dressed herself up as a little old lady. When we walked into that campground, we were the only ones dressed up.
Oh,
now it was actually a surprise birth party for us, since we were having twins, and they were dressed in matching shirts. Each couple was in a matching shirt like they were twins. But it shook me and Kim up so much that when I carried my food in, we walked back out and we almost left. If they hadn't come out after us, we would have gone home. And I remember telling one of them the next day that as much fun as we ended up having at that party, I would never go through that again. I wouldn't want to go through it again. And our two closest friends at the church, they didn't participate because they didn't feel like it was proper to do so. What about a situation like that? Where do we draw the line between a little innocent prank? Now, I assume, I know you feel this way. If you know you're dealing with somebody that you know from their personality, it might bother them, well, then stay away from that. But what about other situations like the one I just described?
Well, I think that a lot of this is about maturity level of both parties. If a person isn't willing to go through a little ribbing, a little trouble, maybe the maturity level's not where it needs to be. Granted, if I know they would really be genuinely upset, I'm not going to do that, of course. But I know the most famous prank I've ever been a part of happened to me.
Tell me. I know what you're going to say. I know the story.
It is superb. I'll tell it quickly. We were camping out on the back of the old church property downtown, getting ready for Vacation Bible School, an experiential Bible school, how they worked and ate and all that. And one lady had taken a lamb and were cooking it like the Israelites would have. It was buried in the ground being cooked.
Right.
And so we were there camping out watching it. And I was with our buddy, Alan Williams, big dude, played football. And about 4:30 or so in the morning, his wife came to my camper van area and said, "There's somebody here." And I looked outside and there was this guy standing over there, barely seeing because of the light was just barely coming up. And he looked terrible. So I put everybody in the van and Alan and I started talking to him. "Can we help you? Is there something you need?" And he wouldn't talk. He just kept sort of getting closer. And so I started to walk toward the church building to get to a phone. That was before cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And he cut me off. And so I'm backing up and he's just, and I still don't know who it is. His clothes are torn and his leg is bleeding. We could see that, but I got no idea because his face looked horrible. And he kept walking toward us and Big Allen was backing up. And I'm thinking, you're the football player. What are you backing up for? But the closer the guy got, he stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, Mike, how you doing?" It was Randy Brockwell, my good buddy. And he had gotten off work at UPS, put on this crazy, freaky mask, pranked himself because it was so dark. He fell and scratched himself up in the gravel and tore his clothes. That's why
right.
He was scared us to death. Of course, what he didn't know, Big Allen was backing up to get a pickaxe, and he was going to take care of that situation. So it was a prank all the way around. I have the picture of him in his mask up here on my bulletin board behind.
I remember it well. I wasn't there that night, but everybody heard the story.
Everybody knows that one. So, we've talked about that now for 25 years, and it's just a great story. Pranking, I think, it really is about a maturity level. Can you handle stuff?
Yeah.
But we do stuff like that all the time on
Yeah.
a lesser level. I don't think there is a moral issue connected with that. No, I don't.
Yes. And if you really want to think about it, we prank our family and friends more than anybody else.
Constantly.
And I talked about what happened to me 30 years ago. That wouldn't have affected me that way now. And that would be a miracle if Kim was pregnant now. But that would not have affected me now.
That'd be a bigger prank right there.
But anyway, I'll close with this. I mean, the kids tell me constantly that I teach that they've never met a teacher that makes more fun of themselves than I do. I mean, I make fun of myself all the time, how I don't have to fall downstairs. I can trip over my feet on a flat surface, to the point that they'll jab me a little bit. We'll talk about a topic and I'll say something like, I guess a real teacher, would have taught you that better. And they'd say, yeah, because you're only a substitute teacher. I mean, they joke around with me all that time. Now, some teachers, I think, would not be happy with not being joked at that way, or even them joking with me that way, but
right.
I'm all right with it. What do you think about that? Do you think that's disrespectful or not?
No,
I don't either.
One of the things that we've had here at the Richmond church, you'll recognize it immediately. Who is the real preacher at Richmond?
Jack Hall.
That's right. They've always called him the real preacher, and I've been here for 30 years.
Yes.
Here's the reason. He preached for this church while they were between preachers for 7 months. Right. And so, and off and on. And so people have jokingly called him the real preacher. We've done that for 30 years. In fact, it happened yesterday. He preached last night, and I even made mention of it because I had some announcements at the end, and I made mention about the real preacher.
Yeah.
So
no,
there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing.
All right, guys. If you want some more April Fool's ideas for next year, just give me a holler and we'll get you set up. I can't believe how much fun I allowed myself to have. I mean, can't even believe how much I enjoyed it. But at the same time, 24 hours later, I was emailing them, not really apologizing, but saying, I hope y'all didn't feel bad about that, because you all are special kids to me, and I wouldn't have joked with you like that if I didn't think you could handle it. And I gave them a quiz that same day, and it was one of the highest overall scores on their quizzes they've ever had. So I don't know what that says, if anything. All right. So I'm through pranking for a year now.
Are you? Okay. Well, okay.
Just like the Reds are pranking the Cardinals now. It's not going to last. They just happen to be first.
That's right.
All right, Mike, close us out with your profound thought of the week.
You always do this to me every time, and I'm thinking to myself, sooner or later, I'm just not going to have something, because I'm just not sometimes a very profound person, and I just run out of profound.
Quote something from the real preacher.
Oh, now you're talking. If we go to the real preacher, I could get some good stuff. No, here is my thing. You know what happens when you get involved in a project with somebody? That's when you learn really how much you know about those people and how well you get along with people.
Right.
We need to be more involved with people. Do things together. You were talking about those things at the beginning of our program today. I think we learn about ourselves the more we get involved with somebody else.
Yeah, we do.
And I think that's a great thing for us to learn, especially because of COVID. Now we're coming out of it. We've sort of forgotten who we are. Let's get back out there, get involved with people, because it helps us to learn more and be better ourselves.
I love it. That's a good one. That might be one of your most profound. You did well. All right, guys, that's it for us this week on the Church Debater and Preacher Mike. Say goodbye, Mike.
Bye, Mike.